I think people talk about rejection like it's a moment, like it's just a yes or no. But I don't think that's what it really is. Rejection doesn't feel like a moment. It feels like something that slowly settles in afterwards. When everything goes quiet again, and you're left alone with your thoughts. At first, it doesn't really hit properly. You kind of expect it. You tell yourself you're fine with whatever answer comes back. You even try to act normal when you're waiting for it. But the truth is, you're not really waiting for the message. You're waiting for a version of reality you secretly hoped would happen. And when it doesn't happen, nothing dramatically changes around you. That's the weird part. The world doesn't react. Everything just keeps going on like normal. But inside, something feels off. Like you're standing in the same place, but something invisible shifted. I used to think rejection was just about someone not feeling the same way. But I don't think that's the part that hurts most. I think the real pain starts after, when your mind starts trying to understand why. And that's where things get dangerous, because your brain doesn't like unanswered questions, so it starts filling in gaps, and most of the time, it doesn't fill them in kindly. You don't think, maybe it just wasn't meant to be. You think, what did I do wrong? What was missing? Why wasn't I good enough? And slowly, without even realizing it, you start turning the rejection inward, not at them, at yourself. You turn bitter, not at them, but yourself. You start looking for flaws, like they must have been obvious all along. Like there must be something you failed to fix before it mattered. Something you didn't have. Something better you could have been. And I think that's the part nobody really talks about. Rejection doesn't just end possibilities. It starts conversations in your head that never really end. You start replaying everything. Messages, moments. Small details that didn't mean anything at the time. But now you feel like clues you somehow missed. And when your mind starts rewriting the past like there was a version where it all went differently, where one message changed everything, where you were one choice you made was enough, but that version doesn't exist. And deep down, you know it. Even while you're still trying to think about it. And the hardest part is, you don't even get angry most of the time, because there's nothing to be angry at. No betrayal, no clear mistake. Just someone feeling differently than you did. And that's the kind of silence that's hard to process. Because when there's no one to blame, your mind automatically turns that weight back on you. You start thinking maybe you just weren't enough. Not in one specific way, just overall. Not funny enough, not interesting enough, not something enough. Even when that's not actually true, it just feels true in the moment. But here's something I've started to realize. Rejection feels personal, but it usually isn't in the way you think. It's not a ranking of value. It's not someone choosing better over you. It's just two people not aligning in the same way at the same time. But your emotions don't care about logic like that. They care about how it feels, and what it feels like is loss, even when nothing was officially yours. And I think that's what makes it so confusing, because you can lose something you never technically had, and still feel like something was taken from you. After a while, I noticed something else. You don't actually move on because time passes. You move on because you slowly stop arguing with reality. At first, you fight it in your head. You imagine different outcomes. You question everything. You try to make sense of it. But eventually, You just get tired of fighting something that isn't changing. And that's where acceptance starts. Not suddenly, just quietly. But even then, it still leaves something behind. Because rejection doesn't just take away a person or a moment. It changes the way you see yourself for a while. Even if it shouldn't. Even if it doesn't make sense. You start being more careful. More aware of yourself. More afraid of repeating it. And sometimes, without noticing, you stop trying as openly as you used to. Not because you want to, but because you don't want to feel that again. You have the fear of being rejected again. And I think that's the real impact of rejection. Not the moment itself, but what it makes you believe about yourself afterwards. Because the truth is, you don't need to become someone else to be enough for the right person. But rejection makes you feel like you should have been, even when that was never the problem. And I think the real damage from rejection isn't hearing no. It's the way you start rewriting yourself afterwards. Trying to figure out what you lacked, what you should have been, what would have made you enough. Until one day you realize you weren't missing anything at all. You just weren't the one they were looking for.